Hello, I'm Annalise Jones with Lucia Learning. Today I'm going to give you an overview of my zoology class. So, what can you expect if you're interested in this zoology class? It will be online Thursdays. Of course, this is a class where we talk about animals. So, this is really popular with the kids. They really just love talking about their favorite animals and doing their own research and presentations. It's one class where I've had kids ask me if they can do extra homework, right? So they never complain. They love doing their research. They love putting together pictures and videos and showing the class the animals that they learned about. So this is a really fun, engaging class that I look forward to teaching. Again, this will be my third year teaching zoology. Thursdays, 1 o'clock Mountain Daylight Time. That means if you're in Arizona, there's a bit of a hassle switching times back and forth when Utah has their daylight savings. So it's over Zoom, and then we communicate over Google Classroom. That is a place where I can post to the stream so everyone can see announcements. And then I can post homework assignments. They can turn in their homework assignments, and then all in one place you can see if anything's missing. You can see what their grade is. So that's a great organized place to communicate and keep everything straight. The class size, you can expect 10 students on average. This is middle school level. Now, I don't say age, I say level. So high schoolers are welcome to do this. Again, we're going to talk about flexibility of homework to where if you want them to have extra work, we can give them extra work. If you want them to have less work, that's an option too. All of my classes are flexible as I'm just trying to meet your needs and support you as the homeschool parent. Fifth graders, perhaps, if they're advanced, if they yeah, just depending on how that works out socially. And then we will adjust the expectations and the homework assignments for whatever each student is able to do. And then just so you know my background, I am coming from a Christian worldview, so I will not get too far into evolution or some of those more controversial topics in biology. But we don't spend a lot of time, let's see, on Christianity either, except for the animal rights topic. I do like to pull in scripture for that, but then we'll ask the students their own personal beliefs. So you will see, we'll get into each of those things. Okay, so what you can expect to learn in this class, animal classification, of course, right? So Carolus Linnaeus, the man who changed his name to Latin so that he could fit, he wanted his own genus and species. We will learn about his system of taxonomy. He was the father of this animal classification, and he invented the system of giving scientific names to the animals. So we'll cover how all that works, and then we'll go through the kingdom, phylum, class, order, da da da. And specifically for vertebrates, we go through each order. So the order is where it starts to sound familiar. So we have the carnivores in a certain order, and we have the fish and the birds, everything that you're familiar with as far as breaking down your animals, those are all different orders. So we'll go through those, and for each of those, the students give their own presentation on an animal of their choice. And then we learn about those one by one. Invertebrates, we don't go by classes or orders just because it's so mixed up and strange. So we'll just, invertebrates is a little bit different. We'll cover them in more terms that we're familiar with instead of those scientific terms. And then I love to throw in our extra debate when we're talking about animal classification. Should humans have their own kingdom? Is it right to classify humans with the animals, or should they have their own kingdom? And that one we might get into something biblical, right? You might see the worldview show up, but that's just a really fun debate to get the students thinking on their own and sharing their own opinions. That might be an optional essay topic when it comes time to write their essays. We will also learn about wildlife researchers. So in my system of education, we don't just learn the information, we learn where the information came from and who was studying it and how did they find out these discoveries. Jane Goodall is the one we think about first, probably. She's a classic wildlife researcher with her studies on primates. Charles Darwin, you might not realize as a wildlife researcher, right? We just know that he put together the theories of evolution, but he didn't do that before he traveled the world, discovering new species and filling up his notebook full of notes about the things he was discovering and the patterns he was finding. So we'll learn about that. And then these last three are modern living people in the zoology field. You might be familiar with some of these. They have TV shows and videos. and it's really fun to see their excitement. The Kratz brothers are really fun. They have that cartoon Wild Kratz, and then Jeff Corwin has a lot of videos. I might assign some of these for homework. We'll see how we get into that. Um, David Attenborough is the voice on, um, sorry, Planet Earth, and then Life. I think we'll watch the documentary Life. So we like to watch the fun videos about animals and then the documentaries that get into some more serious topics, as well as read some books presenting these original thoughts from Jane Goodall and Charles Darwin, and then some fun books. I'll just tell you about that in a minute. And then we like to cover animal rights, right? It's not proper to talk about zoology unless we're going to talk about what is our place in this world of discovering animals and what's our responsibility as humans with stewardship over these animals, right? So this is where it gets more biblical. I hope you're comfortable with that. I will ask the students, or they can tell me in an essay, what is their personal belief about creation and what is their belief about our responsibility to care for the animals. So a biblical perspective would be that God gave man stewardship or dominion over the earth, and we are to care for the earth and to care for these animals. And so we will discuss in class, do you think humans are doing a good job at that? Are we properly caring for these animals? And that brings us to animal rights issues where they're free to debate, they're free to form their own opinions. We will look at both sides of the issues. A lot of great science comes from doing lab work and experiments on animals, but what does the animal experience and is that right? And so this is a place where I personally feel neutral and I'm able to offer the students a space to come forward with either opinion. And I just really like to get that conversation going and support them in thinking for themselves. And then we'll talk about poaching and zoos or pets and all of the interactions between humans and animals, the various issues that come up, what should those interactions look like? And then if you feel like something is wrong in our society, how activism works, how can you get involved and advocate for these animals? Okay, again, my background or my philosophy is leadership education, also known as TJ Ed. And that means a few things. It means that I'm more of a mentor than a teacher. Now, obviously, so there's a mix here. Like, there's going to be some lectures I'm going to teach, but I'm going to mentor them, meaning I'm going to encourage them to discover things for themselves and to go out and research and to learn on their own in between classes, come back to class and tell us what you learned. So I'm trying to inspire them and get them moving to own their own education rather than just sitting passively listening to me lecture. Also in leadership education, it's not so much a curriculum with a textbook and a workbook. It's more like we're going to use living books, and I'll talk to you about that. We're going to use a variety of materials, both film, novels, nonfiction, and we're going to get the students involved, give their own presentations. We're going to incorporate writing, and then we might incorporate some geography and some history, right? Because subjects just naturally overlap. So the student presentation, again, that's where for each order, so for birds, everyone will choose their favorite bird and come and give a presentation. When we go to mammals, everybody will choose their favorite mammal and come in and give a presentation. So every 3 weeks, we have a day where it's just back-to-back student presentations. Although I might change that this time and stagger them throughout those 3 weeks. So we will see how that shakes out. Um, I want to show you a student presentation real fast. So this is the part where they get really excited about it. I want to show you my daughter's presentation. She made this. So last time I taught this class, it was for the upper elementary. And so she made this when she was just 8 years old. And she just loved going crazy, making all of her presentations. So here's her presentation on giraffes. So this is an example of what this might look like, except she was 8, right? So I would expect a little more higher quality and more information and maybe less pictures. So the children just like to really find the pictures and find some animations. So she found where they live, and this incorporates that geography. The African savanna, they learn what a savanna means. We get into the habitats. Long purple tongues. So they learn some interesting and weird facts about the animals. Again, how tall your uncle is, 6 feet. Their legs are 6 feet as well. My daughter is super animated, enthusiastic, as you can tell. Closest relatives. Yeah, we could have talked more about that and spent more time on that, but she didn't know the answer to that. How does a giraffe care for its young? Right? So they have a series of prompts that they can answer. They don't have to find all of the answers, but at least it gives them something to look up and then find some pictures for and teach the class about. Giraffe families, their teeth. I have had students give presentations on extinct animals, and then we went into the fossils, the skeletons and stuff. So, depending on how much time we have, we might do a unit on extinct animals. Some kids get really they get really into that. I personally don't actually know a lot about that. That's one of those areas where I would learn along with the kids and I would just mentor them and encourage them to learn about that. And we would come back to class and say, okay, what did you guys learn? Let's share our findings. And I would just encourage them to discover. Sometimes those odd topics kind of come up. And when I had a student give her presentation on an extinct animal, I was not prepared for that. Like I just didn't really plan on that being part of my zoology class. But as a mentor, when something comes up and it's something they're curious about, then we follow that rabbit trail and really support them and finding their answers and getting curious. Okay, back to where we were. So the homework altogether, this is just an overview of what kind of homework you can expect. And it would probably be, if they do all of this homework, not the optional textbook, they would probably be at 2 hours a week maximum for homework. Just a couple essays, maybe one per semester. We'll talk more about films. That's part of it. Now, the optional textbook. Um, This is where I'm getting a lot of my information and then I get more ideas. But sometimes I have students who want to be on more of an accelerated path, or like if this would be the high school level if we have any high schoolers who are taking this. And so we're trying to modify the course and make it a higher workload to count for high school credits. So then I would have them reading these textbooks and doing some additional work, maybe writing me some extra essays. So this is Apologia. That's a Christian curriculum for zoology. So they talk more about creation. Um, Talk to me if you would like that option. So it's not the default. You would have to talk to me and then I would give extra assignments to them and maybe give them some extra class time. So older kids who want more of a challenge, I might ask them to teach a couple classes. So whatever area they're going to be the most passionate about that they would like to do some extra study and then prepare their own lecture, I can have them teach classes. If they're more introverted, then that's fine. We just kind of work with what we have. Then I would ask them to, hey, I'm preparing this lesson and we're going to be talking about this chapter in the textbook. Will you read that in advance with me to give them more reading to do? And if you want them to practice their writing skills, I can give them a writing prompt as well. So I really like hearing from the parents and how I can just adapt my classes to meet your needs. And the good thing is, since I teach multiple subjects, I'm able to just incorporate more assignments, get them writing more if that's a concern, or get them studying historical context or the geography, right? Okay, so back to living books now. What do I mean by that? So this is an alternative to textbooks. And I know I just showed you textbooks. I like these textbooks, though. I wouldn't call them dry. But um, for elementary and middle school, especially, I maybe wouldn't use textbooks. I wouldn't use a book that just has a whole lot of text on a page without showing more pictures. Or the problem with the textbook is it's written by an unknown person who wasn't really connected to the action, right? They don't have a personal memory of working with Jane Goodall, and they might not even be passionate about the topic. So we want to read a living book that's written by somebody closely connected, that's written in an engaging way with cartoons or photographs or more graphics, that's just really a lot more interactive and exciting to read, that shows the author's passion. That would be more age appropriate, right? When we're talking about fifth and sixth, seventh grade readers, they don't want to just have a bunch of words on a page, especially with zoology. You got to see the pictures of the animals. And it's just really exciting to hear from or about Charles Darwin himself, right? So I'll show you this fun book we're going to read about Charles Darwin and then Jane Goodall. And living books are often narrative style rather than a bunch of facts. So Jane Goodall tells us the story of how she went out to study the chimpanzees and what questions she had, what challenges she had, what fun memories she made, right? So it's different from just listing a bunch of facts. So that's how it stimulates your imagination. It will also highlight moral character, and that's where we start to touch on these issues such as animal rights or other things that wildlife researchers just naturally come across where maybe they do have to make a choice and their morals come into play. And of course, in any subject with a good education, we want to bring those lessons in as well. All right, here's the books that I use for this class. All Creatures Great and Small, that's a really fun BBC, it says PBS. That is a TV series that's really fun to watch about a veterinarian who goes and makes house calls and helps with the animals. The Jane Goodall book I read here, The Chimpanzees I Love. This is like a picture, but it looks like a children's book, but then there's chapters in it as well. But it probably takes a middle schooler just an hour to read, so it's not long. I looked at a lot of books. Of course, there's a lot out there for Jane Goodall, but and ideally, if this were the high school level or college, like we would want to read their own books, the book that Jane Goodall wrote. And the reason I didn't go with that is because she has a lot, like an entire chapter. She just has a lot of information about mating, and I just didn't want to provide that encouragement for immaturity in the class. So we're actually not going to cover a whole lot of mating, right? Maybe with the invertebrates where it's not so awkward, but that's a sensitive issue where we just try to go carefully. And so I didn't want to read those full chapters. Like she gives very detailed descriptions about the animals mating. So I didn't want to use her actual books. That's why we're using this children's book. It still has great information. And The Voyage of the Beetle. So Darwin's own book is called, now I forget it, The Voyage of the Beagle, the dog, right? I think that's what his book is called. So this is like a younger adaptation of that where it's told from the perspective of a beetle. So it's super cute, but I mean, again, I used this in the past for middle school and high school, and they think it's charming. It's fine to read these children's books. It's told from the perspective of the beetle, and it talks about each discovery that Darwin made, and it doesn't focus a whole lot on evolution. So that is friendly to a Christian worldview. The Zoology for Kids, I like this because it quickly goes, not quickly, but it goes over every topic in zoology that you need to understand in just a very basic way. So that is a good way just to get the younger students reading and engaged, give them some homework to do, but it's not super deep. And then The Amazing Panda Adventure, that's the film where we talk about animal rights. And the Smithsonian Animal Book, I just love this is the big hardcover book. You've probably seen these. There's a lot of them by Smithsonian, or is it DK Discoveries? Is that the name of it? Anyways, their pictures are just amazing, like full color pictures on 2 pages all together. And sometimes fold outs, just really fun. So I recommend these books. And sometimes with living books, I might say, for the next 3 weeks, we're going to be talking about birds. Go to your local library and find some of your own books about birds that just look good to you. So another thing about living books is sometimes that's flexible, where every student doesn't have to read the same book. They could just go out and read, like their homework assignment might be go pick a book about a bird that you want to learn about, or birds in general, and your job is just to read a book and get back to me. That way they're able to just have the flexibility and the freedom to choose their own. All right, so that's the zoology class. Now you might be wondering, who am I? Anyway, so let me just tell you about myself. I am a homeschool mom. My oldest graduated a couple years ago, so he's turning 20, and he was homeschooled the entire time. So we covered all the subjects with him. It's a good way to get your feet wet and refresh your own education and just really get involved in all of the subjects. But what I studied in college was psychology and English. So that's what I have been strongest on. I was always strong in math. I remembered my math up through 8th grade math, so I teach that as well. And then zoology was a fun addition. I always loved biology and animal classification when I was in school. The dissections were great. Unfortunately, we don't do dissections with online classes. But I picked zoology back up when there was a high request for it from my students. And so I was able to piece together and build my own course here because it was a requested. And that was the first year I did it. That was like 3 years ago. It was just really fun and refreshing to take a request and just meet their need and provide what they wanted. So Lucia Learning is we're a bit different. I teach all the classes, it's just me. It's small, but it's personalized. It's not heavily streamlined, and I'm here live. Whenever you email, it's me answering the email. If I know a student's struggling, I'll talk to them outside of class and I'll help them along. I just really like to know who my students are and give them personalized attention. I like to give them flexibility. They can choose. Sometimes they want an alternate homework assignment or whatever it is. I just really try to meet their needs, to know who they are, and then to meet them where they're at. I hope to have a personal relationship with them, especially where they're struggling. And so that might be more helpful for them to feel like I'm invested and I really care if they succeed. So I am small, and that's why I keep the business small. So the classes are usually just 10 students. I like to see them on their cameras. I like to get them interacting and involved with me. Now, again, if they're really introverted and shy, and the parents can always let me know, but then I respect that. So it's just good to get that communication and know what the parents expect. But I like to get to know my students and I like to see their faces. So it is fun doing live classes where they know their teacher, they can talk to their teacher, and then get extra help outside of class or whatever we need to do. Here's one of my zoology students, and this is what she said about my teaching. Annalise is a wonderful teacher who strives to create a fun and engaging learning environment. Her method aims to teach more than just the subject matter, exploring many different areas. She provides real-world examples, helping her students develop skills to use what they learn in their day-to-day life. She's a passionate teacher who's open to having deep discussions with her students, allowing them to make observations they would not have been able to make otherwise. I have learned so much in her classes. From my time in her classes, my love for learning has been rekindled. Her curriculum and classes are so much more than just an opportunity to learn. They're also an opportunity to grow, to appreciate the world around us. And that is just really special that her love of learning was rekindled. This is somebody who had a bad experience in another learning environment. And so she came back to homeschool, and she was she even learned with younger students, but she was comfortable and it was able to get her involved and really curious again. So that was such a pleasure to work with her. So here's the schedule. The zoology is Thursday at 1 o'clock. Talk to me if you're also interested, or go to the website. We're doing a historical literature, history/dystopian literature class. You can get details on the website. Math at various different levels, and then middle school language arts. There are more classes if you want recordings from what I taught last year. Talk to me if you want more information about the recordings. They are like 75% off, so they are much cheaper. So these live classes are 160 per semester, or if you sign up for the full year up front, then you get a discount and it's 300. So you can register at lucialearning.com. If you want that full year discount, talk to me directly. That option is not on the website right now. Maybe we'll do it in the future. So here's my contact information if you have any questions. And so I hope to hear from you. You can go ahead and look at the website for more information about my philosophy and look at the courses. So there you have it, zoology. And let me know if you want to know more about the other subjects I teach. You can take a look at the YouTube channel and see what else is out there. Thanks so much for joining me. We'll talk to you next time.